Oh, I'm scared. An absolute heavyweight, a pillar, a legend in the analytics community. I cannot big this guy up enough, my friend Stéphane Hamel. Big round of applause, please.
All right. It's Jim Stein, when he presents people on the last day of the conference, he always say, only the best stays until the end, so good. I'm glad you're here. It's interesting because I was, during breakfast, we were chatting, and I said, I really, really enjoy speaking, and I don't feel nervous about it. But I always have this imposter syndrome, like, is it going to be good enough? Is it going to be interesting? So hopefully it's going to be. And I want you to, I like to challenge people. One of the skills of a good analyst is to have good critical thinking. So I like to kind of put some pressure on you. So in 2016, I presented the Digital Analytics Maturity Model because I was looking at how agencies and clients were doing analytics and just have unrealistic expectation about their capabilities. So the maturity model was there to evaluate where I am and where I want to go and what's the gap between the two. So that helped a lot of people. Then after that, the next year, I talked about radical analytics, and some people told me, yeah, isn't radical a little bit too kind of strong? But I really wanted it to be radical. So it's like we've been doing analytics for, I don't know, 10, 15, 20, like the web exists for more than 25 years. So essentially we've been analyzing web data for over 25 years now. But there are things, the way we do it, that just don't work. It's like when you ask your stakeholders what's your objectives, you get blank eyes, they don't know what are their objectives and so on. So I wanted to challenge a little bit. So now with something different, it's a little bit like looking where things might go in the future. You might agree or disagree, and hopefully we're going to be able to kind of take a step back and think about what we're doing. So for the past 10, 15 years, marketers have been super happy with their nice 3D pie charts, right? They despised IT. They said, no, we don't want to talk to IT. They don't understand what we want to do. And of course, while they were doing that, eventually web analytics became kind of democratized. It was more accessible. Marketers loved it. They had, again, their nice 3D pie charts, right? So that was great. Of course, we were complaining because, well, I guess that's part of the job definition, to complain. And it followed the same path as the webmasters. Everybody and their dog jumped on the bandwagon of doing, oh, I need to do web analytics. And then eventually we got a fancier name, and let's call it digital analytics. And hopefully, eventually, we're going to just say it's analytics because we don't care where the data is coming from. So the question is, while they were having fun with things like this, and we still have fun with it, they were kind of despising IT and everything, and they were also boasting themselves and saying, yeah, we're so good, like everything is marketing. I heard leaders in our industry saying everything is marketing. Like the most important job function in a business is the marketer. And in fact, marketers are so good that they're going to spend more than the CTO and CIO of any business. Like that was a prediction. In the next couple of years, like marketers are going to spend more than CIOs and CTOs. In fact, marketers are so good that they're going to get the seat of the CEO. Right? We can think that. But marketing is not the only thing in a business. So with that power comes a lot of responsibility. So I'm going to have a couple of stats and some examples. I guess one of the questions is, how do we define marketing? If we think about what is marketing from an academic perspective, the traditional definition is something along the lines of how to offer the best services and products to customers for the benefit of all. Do you really think that's how we define marketing today? Or at least that's how we do marketing today? Isn't it more like, let's squeeze the most we can into a target audience and have them do what we want them to do? That's pretty much what we're doing. When we do analytics and when we do targeting and when we do audience segments and all those things, when we use machine learning to learn more about our clients, why do we do it? It's because we want to influence them to do what we want them to do. Is it for their best benefit? Maybe not always. Just this morning, for example, I read Iran used I think the US or whatever shut down a network that was actually targeting, again, just like the election in the States. Like Iran was targeting people to influence their behavior. That sounds a little bit evil, right? A bit like manipulating audiences to vote in one direction or the other, be it in the States or for Brexit or for whatever else. So before we continue, I have to put on some accessories to protect myself, right? Okay. Now it's much better. I hope it's going to hold. So, so for the MER model, meaning that not us in the room, for the normal consumers, the first realization that something was wrong is Cambridge. It was probably the first time that people realized that data could be abused at such a scale that it can influence democracies, right? So what is the real problem? I'm going to put it out because I know some pictures are going to go. So what is the problem with Cambridge? So in fact, there were only like 270,000 Facebook users who actually installed that application that actually granted the access to the data, to their data. The problem is it also gave access to their friends and so on, and that's how they ended up with like 87 million profiles. Now I have a super important question for you. As an analyst, if you had the opportunity to work with 87 million profiles, would you do it? Of course you would. And if you tell me you wouldn't do it, you're just lying. Because we dream of working with super big data sets. That's super cool. It's like, what else can you dream of? So what is the problem with Cambridge? Really, what is the problem with Cambridge? Is it the fact that they actually collected the data? No. They just found a clever way that was not illegal. They found a clever way to collect the data. They were pretty smart people who actually found a way to use the data. And they used it to do what they wanted to do, which is marketing. If you ask those people what you did was evil, they're going to say no. We were just doing marketing. We were just using data. And we applied our skills in machine learning and everything, and we targeted audiences to send our message. And we were just so good at it, right? So what is the real problem with Cambridge? The real problem is people found out about it. That's the real problem, right? Because until you know that you are being manipulated, you just don't know, right? So, and that's, for the most part, it seems like that's what marketing has become. Let's find ways to leverage data, manipulate people. Of course, we won't use those terms, but target people and have them do what we want them to do. So, In the next few minutes, I'm going to present examples of data being abused, but from two different angles. One is going to be from a data breach perspective, and the other one is going to be from how we leverage that data to do whatever we want to do. So you heard that before, right? Data is the new oil. In fact, the analogy is just too good, because when you think of it, when you dig for oil, there's like unscrupulous digging. Like you will destroy the wildlife, you will do harmful things. We do the same. Waste disposal. What are the processes in place to ensure that once we've used the data and it shouldn't be useful anymore, how do we destroy it? How do we get rid of it? How do we make sure that there's no risk of a leak? Are we able to trace back? So when the oil ends up all in the barrels and it ends up at the pump to fill your car, traceability is pretty much absent. Like you cannot know as a consumer where exactly it's coming from. For our data, once it's in the big data lake, can we trace it back? It's actually pretty difficult, right? And obviously there are risks. The byproducts, so we collect data for a certain purpose, but hey, we got it. I have a clever idea. I'm going to use this data for something else. And it seems legit. It seems okay to do that. And the last one is interesting because oil is controlled by a few big players, and it's ugly. And when you think of it, who are the big players? Like, always the same name comes back. The Google, the Facebook, the Microsoft, all the Amazon, and so on, right? And there are a bunch of smaller players. All the eyes are turned to the big players. Google just got fined because a small fine of 50 million euros or something like that, because they did something wrong. I'm probably not as worried about Google as all the other smaller players who don't give a shit and will do it anyway, right? So what's your breaking point? At which point, as a consumer, will you say, enough is enough? I don't want my data to be collected, shared, abused. I don't want to be manipulated as a consumer. But if we flip it around, as analysts, what's your breaking point? When will you say, no, I will not do that because it doesn't feel right? The problem with that is we're part of a big system. It's like the scientist who works on something super cool. He has his little family, a nice home, kids, and he goes to work every morning and he works on something without knowing that in the end he's working on the next version of the nuclear bomb or something like that. At our scale, oftentimes we can work on something that we don't even know, we don't realize that what we're doing might be part of something bigger that will have side effects later on. Be it because of our own analysis or because of the result of our analysis, which will be, let's see how we can squeeze the most out of our target audience, right? So who has a home assistant? Many of us, right? So this was, maybe you heard that, a family, their Nest surveillance camera got hacked, and the prank was there was a North Korean attack going on, so they freaked out. Of course, what Google said is, well, in reality, Nest didn't get hacked. It was just a case of a bad password. It was a weak password, so they got in and they did that. So it seems fun, it seems interesting. That's just one anecdote of something that can happen, but the reaction from Google to say, yeah, it was just a user error, it's the same thing as, yeah, it's not our fault. The guy was too stupid to stay on the road and he ran into a lamppost, right? So vendors today, what they are saying for the most part is that when there's a problem, most of the time it's a human error. And it's therefore not their responsibility. It's like the car manufacturer saying, no, we will never invest into developing seat belts and airbags because at the end of the day, when there's an accident, it's always a human error. Right? So what are the vendors doing? If you look at Facebook, Google, and so on, of course, they're going to say, yeah, privacy is so important for us. We respect our customers. Yeah, the nice music and everything. And you can control your privacy if you go to there and click and go and turn around and jump on your head, and you're going to be able to control your privacy. So it's not privacy by default. It's not security by default. Right? So, and the whole concept of the ad tech industry and the web analytics industry is based on something that is insecure by design. You can hack any ad network and you can send any spam data to any account you want. It's super easy. Why? Because it's just, at the base, historically, it was just a hidden GIF image with a bunch of, initially no query string parameter, because the only thing that was collected was, okay, what's the page and what's the referrer and number of hits. And then they got fancier and they added a bunch of additional parameters, and then they got even fancier and they packaged that into a JavaScript library. But the technology that is being used to collect the data either for analytics, for web digital analytics, or the ad network is still based on the concept of making a request to a third-party location and sending a bunch of data. But that whole thing is insecure by design. Anyone can do those requests. So there's no handshaking to make sure that the source and the destination are the right ones. There's no authentication mechanism. So it's super easy, and that's why we have so much spam data in our GA accounts still, right? Speaking of cars, self-driving cars, that's super cool. It's a whole computer system. There's so many instruments in a self-driving car. In a Boeing Dreamliner, like it's a top-line airplane, there's 15 million lines of code. In a car today, there's 100 million lines of code. In a self-driving car, there's 300 million lines of code. So my background is in computer science. So there's a logic that as the number of lines increase, the ratio of error, the potential for error, the potential for a security risk, a bug, also increase. Our IoT and home assistance and all those things, that's super cool, right? This is just a picture from the website of one vendor. Thermostats, smart locks, smart hubs, sensors of all kinds, lights. You can even control your shower and make sure that it's always the right temperature and all those things remotely. Because it's so important to start your shower remotely because, whatever. But we all want, we see benefits in being remote and being able to, let's lower the temperature by 2 degrees because we're not there. Or unlock the door because someone is on the door and they forgot their key or whatever, right? All of that is an untapped world for the most part for marketers. Like there are many of those vendors actually sell the data about what's going on in houses. Of course, they anonymize it. Of course, right? So here's what happened. Z-Wave is one of the manufacturer. 100 million smart home devices can be hacked. So that means you can unlock doors. You can turn on and off or off cameras. So those things are great because they make our life easier. They are in some ways a marketer's dream if you can get your hands on data. If you want to know about consumers' habit, there's nothing better. But this kind of thing can happen. So there's a consistent pattern. As soon as something is connected, it can be hacked. Like in my earlier days, I mentioned I worked in computer science, but I was also a hacker. So now I can say it doesn't matter. It was a long time ago. It was actually very easy. So it was not about hacking, games to avoid paying the cost of the game. There was that. But it was also hacking in the sense of being curious about how far can I go from a technological standpoint. It's like solving a puzzle. And there's a puzzle downstairs. It's not complete yet. It's not solved yet. But hacking was, in a way, the same thing. It was how far can I go to solve that puzzle? Can I find a way to work around it? So I did that for a while, and then I got a job in putting on the licensing mechanism into a super expensive software. So I worked on both sides. But this is worrying. So there's home assistants, home devices, cars, all kind of stuff. You perhaps know where you were last night. I had an interesting discussion about Apple Watch and how, who was talking? I don't remember with who. Yeah, we talked about that. How the Apple Watch can actually know your sleeping cycle, and you even showed me the data, like when I'm in this town, I sleep well, and when I'm this other town, I don't sleep as well. So what it means is it's tracking you all the time. While you sleep, while you're awake, it knows where you are. So here's an example. Actually, we don't see the map very clearly, but actually all the kind of the lights, those are actual data points. Of course, they follow the streets because people are moving around and so on. But here's an example. It's the New York Times. They released an interesting article just last week or 2 weeks ago where they collected data, or they got their hands on data for only 3 days. For only 3 days, they got how many millions? 235 million locations data point in 3 days. Okay, and they analyzed that to see what they could find in the data. So one example is there's like 75 companies that receive anonymous but precise location from apps. And mostly because you say, yeah, sure, you can track me. Like, I want the weather. So it's much more useful to see the weather right away instead of having to enter a city, right? It's just convenience. But it's tracking your location. And those 75 companies that have, I don't know how many apps, they claim themselves to have data about 200 million people in the States only. That's like 2/3 of the population. That's huge. So here what we see is, is it going to work? A car pulls up at 7:30 a.m. The car is actually right there, okay? It's all anonymous, just location data, and opted in. So the device enters a schoolyard and walks around. Some of those apps will collect the data every 20 seconds. Okay? Not all of them, but they can do it every 20 seconds. Then the device ends up here, along with a bunch of other devices. And the pattern repeats every weekday from, let's say, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And actually, you can trace those little dots back to their own location. It's all anonymous. And one vendor claims that they collect anonymous location data, but they don't merge it with the addresses. Yeah. You don't need it, right? So I can imagine some of you have the reaction of, I have nothing to hide, so what? I don't care if they collect my location or, whatever else. Might be, my profile is already public anyway. I don't care. Like I get that oftentimes in the States where there's a lot of companies that will do dark profiles. They create profiles without knowledge and consent of the users and even without the ability to review it, just because they scavenge all the public information about someone. And they can merge that with financial records and stuff like that because that information can be available without the user consent. So we have different perspective in contradiction to GDPR, for example. The other one is any technology can be used for good or evil. Actually, I heard that many times. And there was that video about some technology and a doctor from a university in the States. She said, when the journalist asked her, but aren't you afraid that your technology is going to be used for something bad? And the answer was, any technology can be used for good or evil. So it's almost like a justification. I'm doing it anyway because whatever I do, it could be used for evil. And the last one, everybody does it. So why should I care? I'm just one dot in the millions of little dots that are being collected. The assumption we have to make is that every single company, organization, government is going to be breached eventually. Like every day, there are news that such and such company they had a breach and so on. And actually, there's a lot of it that we don't even hear about. Those numbers are actually the number of records every day that are being leaked. Every hour, every minute, every second, right? And they keep a tally of that. So in fact, the first big data leak, it's just 772 million email addresses found in a public cache, which is essentially what the hackers are using to share their information, like in the dark web and stuff like that. They have cache, and they put their interesting stuff there. So, email addresses, who cares? Like, I'm getting spammed anyway. Right? It's just my email address. But what if it's more than email addresses? What if it's actually a complete profile with address, name, gender, age, all that information? Okay. Yeah, it's almost public information. You can easily find where someone lives. But what if it's something else? How many of you have done your like Ancestry DNA to see where your origins are? It's pretty popular. Nobody has done it? Yeah? Some of you? Okay. So be it Ancestry or any other one, in the States, there was a serial killer, and the case was cold for like 20 years or so, or 30 years, something like that. And, but they had a DNA sample from one of the crime scenes, but the criminal didn't have any record, so they couldn't match it with the police couldn't match it with their own database. So they turned to, maybe they didn't mention which one, but maybe it was Ancestry, maybe it was something else. But I actually went and checked the Ancestry policy, and it actually says that if there's a warrant, if they have the legal papers, they will give the data. So they didn't explain exactly how they did it, but we can imagine what happened. They took the DNA sample, they turned around to something like this, and they said, do you have any match? And they found someone with the same DNA. It was actually like an uncle or something like that. So they didn't say how they traced back to what we call patient zero, but they managed to find the criminal. He was actually a policeman. So he got away with it for 20 or 30 years, but they eventually got him. That's good use, right? There was nothing evil about that. Now take another example where maybe eventually somewhere in a country, the government decides that anyone with brown eyes is not worthy of being alive. Right? It's all there. The data is going to be breached eventually. Right? There was another example, Facebook, the 10 years challenge. Somebody said, what if actually this was a way to train facial recognition? Because what's happening is you disclose a picture of you 10 years apart. So you have two validated data points, exactly the same time frame apart. So this could be used to train facial recognition to say, well, our recognition is going to be better because if we, and there's good use, there could be good use of that. It could be like a child was abducted and you want to show a picture of the child 10 years later. That's a really good use, right? But it just pushed the envelope a little further. It can also be used for evil. So of course, Facebook said, no, we didn't put out that meme. It grew up organically, and it's not our fault, and we're not doing anything with the data. And yeah, maybe. But that would make a pretty good, interesting challenge for anyone who works in facial recognition to actually work on that. So maybe Facebook is not doing it after all. Maybe someone else is doing it, and we don't know about it yet. So again, the problem is not that the data is out there. It can be collected. It can be used. And it's all fine until we know about it, until we know someone is using it for something evil, something that we deem to be evil. So is it a conspiracy theory? A lot of people say, yeah, it's a conspiracy theory, but it doesn't matter. What matters is it possible to do it? Absolutely possible to do it. Right? So today, hacks are annoying. But in the future, they will kill. So there's, smart people, right? So I have a few quotes. Here's one. I'll let you read them. Here's another one. Another one. This one is a little bit long, but it's actually from the. It happened like not a long time ago. It is going on right now. So world leaders or influencers are saying, oh, wait a minute. Something is going on here. And we don't realize the scale at which it's going on, right? Cyber war has begun. Like, it's not me saying it. It's not you saying it. It's actually, like, that's kind of pretty scary. So how many wars were started because of oil? I would say probably 60, 80% of them. It was because of something. And we keep saying, data is the new oil. Actually, here's the next one. Technology could result in a new world war. And this is not fake news. This is not, conspiracy theory. He's like, I think he has some authority. So speaking of Jack Ma, it's kind of interesting because his company is actually contributing to this. And he says, as a technical company, don't be evil, which is a direct arrow toward Google. But he's contributing to that social system. So I won't go through the details. You heard about the social rating in China. It's actually going on. And I spoke with somebody I know in China, and the perception for the most part is, no, this will make better citizens because people won't run on a red light. They will abide by the rules. This is all nice. It's to offer better services. The same justification we have. We want to collect all that data because we want to better serve our customers. They want to collect all the data because they want to better serve their citizens. It's all good and fine, right? How many of you would be comfortable with that? I'm not. No way. And actually, when the guy he's a UK citizen who's been in China for 25 years, and when I asked him, so he's part of that, he could be part of that system, and he is certainly monitored. And actually, like it's pretty hard to work with him because he always have to go through, like open the VPN or something, like go through the wall. And what he said is, no, it's actually a good thing. And then you start to wonder, does he have any choice of saying that it's a good thing? Because if he knows he's being monitored, if he says it's a bad thing, he's going to lose points. So it's like, it's not a Black Mirror episode, it's real life. And that's scary. Did you see that video where Google presented Duplex, and there's that conversation where someone is booking an appointment, and it's a bot, and it's so real that even the intonation of the robot replying contains the human expression, yeah, let me check, all the intonations that it's impossible to know it's not a human. And what did Google say? They said, of course, the AI is going to disclose itself. Maybe I can imagine the call is going to start, hi, I'm a robot, how can I help you? Actually, it won't be this way. It's going to be, hi, Stéphane, I'm a robot, how can I help you? It's going to be much more natural. Or, my name is Jane, I'm a robot, I can help you. Like, that's science fiction, but it's here today. So, let's look at a little example. Okay, I'm going to play a couple of audio tracks.
Hey, buddy, why do you want to hear my voice?
Yeah, not really good, right?
So you are thinking of using my voice in your product.
Okay, let's switch to a different voice. Jane.
My voice might be generated by a computer.
Yeah.
But I think it sounds very human.
Not really, right?
My voice might be generated by a computer, but I think it sounds very human.
Oops. Let's hear another one.
My voice might be generated by a computer, but I think it sounds very human.
Yeah, it's still not close enough, but actually there's voices for Obama and a bunch of other people that are available. So what can happen with that? Of course, when we call...
We're entering an era in which our enemies can make it look like anyone is saying anything at any point in time, even if they would never say those things. So, for instance, they could have me say things like, Killmonger was right, or Ben Carson is in the sunken place, or, how about this, simply, President Trump is a total and complete dipshit. Now, you see, I would never say these things, at least not in a public address, but someone else would. Someone like Jordan Peele. This is a dangerous time. Moving forward, we need to be more vigilant with what we trust from the internet. That's a time when we need to rely on trusted news sources. It may sound basic, but how we move forward in the age of information is going to be the difference between whether we survive or whether we become some kind of fucked up dystopia. Thank you. And stay woke, bitches.
How many of you have seen that before? Yeah, some of you? It's kind of scary, isn't it? Everything is fake. Be it the click farms in China and stuff like that, be it the extremes of deepfake videos. Of course, deepfake videos, you can imagine how it started. It started in porn. Like so many other technologies, it started with porn. But everything is fake, so we have to wonder if the data we're using, is it real, is it fake, and what we're going to do with it. Is it real, is it fake? Are we going to manipulate the masses for our own benefits? So Montreal is actually emerging as being a hub for AI. There's like most of the large, if not all of the biggest players in the field have some research centers in Montreal. So they came up, somebody mentioned the DA Code of Ethics. I think we need to elevate that to another level. And I invite you to have a look at this. I think it's something we need to keep in mind. Maybe I can imagine you're saying, oh yeah, what I'm doing is not to that extent. You know, you're not into deep fake and voice synthesis and all those aspects. But maybe you could be in that field. The next logical step of what we're doing is going in that direction. So with that, I'm Stéphane Hamel, and data is the raw material of my craft. Thank you.